think the first thing would be you got to be authentic. The sooner you can realize that your joy is going to come from your tribe, and your tribe is going to be drawn to something. And if you're drawing them to an inauthentic you, that's a tough one to negotiate and reconcile.
All right, welcome to the F Words podcast. I'm Nick Skovgaard, and today I have with me John Forbes from Forbes Financial in Carbondale. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Nick, it's great to be here.
So, John, I'm really excited about this one because I want to talk about today is something that like every entrepreneur, every parent, every dreamer struggles with. And it's this idea of like, how do you chase the really big goals without losing sight of what matters? The faith, the fun, the family, the joy of the journey. And so, John, I'm going to ask you today to like just share some of your stories from how you got to where you are today, the wins, the wipeouts, and the lessons you learned along the way. Are you good with that?
I'm fine with it.
Good. So, John, I want to take you back to a moment, and you and I in conversation kind of refer to this just as like the parking lot moment, right? For those of the audience who've never heard this story, will you just tell us what the parking lot moment was for you? Where does that come from?
Yeah, it was about 17 or 18 years into the business. And we'd gone through some internal changes. A great guy that worked with me for several years that is a wonderful guy, just wasn't a wonderful fit anymore. And so you kind of go through a breakup like that. It's a little challenging. And I pulled into the parking lot one day and I couldn't get out of the car. I'm trying to walk into the building that I own, has my name on it, my own practice, and I really lost the excitement for doing what I do. Hit a wall. I know a lot of people do that. I don't think it's uncommon. But for me, it became a very eye-opening moment where I had to make a decision. Am I going to continue to trudge through this or am I going to thrive? And I thought, okay, what would make this thrive for me? What would make it exciting? I knew that it had to be more authentic. It had to be a reflection of who I am and what I believe in. And the thought being that if I'm genuine and authentic in that way, it's probably going to draw other people who see the world through the same lens. That was the beginning of this shift in mindset from being a financial services firm to being a hospitality firm that just happened to really give good, sound, timeless financial advice.
So I want to dive into like, you know, if you could have told that version of yourself sitting in the parking lot, you know, where you were going, right? In just a one sentence overview, you would have thought you were crazy. But before we get to that, I have a question. When you were at that moment, you know, what were the fears or the doubts that were like the loudest in those days? Because I think that just kind of like acknowledging that people like yourself who are, you know, really successful, who have built something really cool, who have fun jobs, you know, it wasn't always easy, right? There are doubts, there are fears, there are things that keep you from like, am I even going the right way? What were some of the ones for you that were the loudest at that like, you know, leading up to that moment?
At that moment, what was frustrating is we had a very successful practice. It was consistently getting recognition from industry sources that we were doing exceptionally well. But we were doing exceptionally well, but I wasn't doing exceptionally well. And it's hard to lead people, and it's hard to encourage others and serve people well if your head and aren't fully into it. So I wanted to make that clear that it wasn't that we were struggling and then all of a sudden everything, you know, we flipped the corner and it became a financially successful practice. It was very successful at that point, but I had to redefine what success was going to be. And that's when it became the light bulb moment. So yeah, the questions and the struggles I had in the moment are, can I truly like my job? Can I truly love what I do again? And that was the question, that moment in the parking lot, and kind of developing a vision for what I wanted it to be, and then sharing that with my wife, with my family, with my VP of operations, and all of them catching a wind of it and yeah, getting this could be fun, this could be neat. That was the important part of what made that vision a reality, was that the people around me bought into it as well.
And I don't want to give away the end of the story, but spoiler alert, it's possible, right? Like having a job that like you do meaningful work and you help people and you make a difference and you are successful and you love what you do. Yeah. I think that like reflectively, right now, how do you feel about how things are going?
I'm excited because it's gotten to the point, Nick, where I feel like we've really created some separation between how we do things and how the industry does things. I just got back from a conference in Phoenix, and the CEO of the company that we affiliate with, he's a brand new CEO. This was his first time speaking at this event, and he quoted and shared a book on his presentation, Unreasonable Hospitality, by Will Guidara. And this is a book that, I think you and I have talked about this before. This is a book that I just read a few months ago that opened up my brain to what could be and how to think much, much bigger. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, and this probably wasn't the intent behind the book, but I bought a building. We bought a new building, and we're moving the practice into a space that's about 2.5 times as big as the one we have now. And we love our space, but one of the things I realized as I read that book and started thinking big again was that sometimes physical space can limit your mental and emotional space too, and just taking a big step to change your environment. And it doesn't mean they have to go out and buy a building, but as you look around, what around you, what in your environment is restricting your thinking, and that became a critical part of what we're doing just within the last few months.
Well, and I think that you said one of the key words here, which is just intentionality. Really thinking about intentionally about where you want to go and what matters and what's the priority and like setting that stuff up. Mm-hmm. So was there a moment where you knew your business was going to be completely different, where you had that sort of like the like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, we're really going to do this. We're really going to just like completely, go this direction. Was there like a defining moment in that?
Yeah, there was. I was sitting at the Giant City Lodge with some clients, and I can't remember now what we were doing. We had done something, and my wife had been nudging me about ask them about potlucks. Ask them about potlucks, which again, to put perspective on, I look back now is no big deal, but at the time, you would throw client events, and the idea was to wine and dine and entertain and have all the bells and whistles of a client event. The thought of asking my top clients, hey, could you bring some food to my party, was so radically different. And when I actually presented, there were about 8 or 10 clients that were sitting there at the table, and I kind of ran it by them and said, hey, what would you think about if I did potlucks? Would you mind bringing? And they all in unison, oh, we'd love to. That would be so fun. That would be great. I've got a lot of clients that are, I don't think the seniors call themselves foodies, but they are the OGs. They are the ones who could really cook like nobody's business. And I got a lot of clients that love to prepare meals and prepare food. So it was a perfect, beautiful fit to roll that out there. But that was not in any guidebook or how to run a financial services firm. There nowhere did it say have a potluck and invite your clients to bring food. So that was when I threw that kind of offbeat idea out there, and they fully embraced it. That's when I knew, okay, we're going to have some fun with this.
Oh, okay. So I immediately have 3 questions just based on that. So the first one is, I want you to imagine that like, young financial advisor John Forbes is meeting John Forbes, who's getting ready to have that conversation in the hallway, and you're like, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to go tell these clients that we're going to have a potluck. Would that original financial advisor, John, just be like mortified?
Oh, laughed hysterically. You go ahead and do that. Ruin your practice. I'll keep building mine the way they say to do it. Yeah, exactly. It would have been unheard of to do that.
And then the second question is, do they know? Do the clients that were sitting at that table know? Have you ever told them this story?
I don't think I have. And a couple of them have passed away since then, which makes it kind of tough. But yeah, if they catch the podcast, this is when they'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be so cool,
yeah.
for, to know that like that reaction or that moment was the moment. Had they gone like, oh no, John, you're supposed to buy us food, and no, we only want to go to the fancy restaurants and have you wine and dine us, like that's whatever. It would have changed the whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah, it would have. It really would have. Yeah, they embraced it, and it just reminds me again, when you are being authentic, you're going to draw people that kind of quack like you do and walk like you do, and it really it that really sealed it for me that yeah, these are my people. This I can be my authentic self, and this is gonna bode well.
And it makes all the difference.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes all the difference. So kind of the next two stages, and we can kind of go through these a little quickly here, but like, how did, your faith and your family influence those first steps? I mean, those are hard, scary steps to take, no matter where you are, but having that support in your corner can make all the difference. How did they make an impact for you?
Yeah, and when I think about that, I don't think so much about that moment of when we started to do that hospitality focus. The real faith tests were, well, it'll be 20 years ago, just this fall, it'll be 20 years ago that I made the move to be independent. And 30 years ago this fall is when I started with the previous firm. And the real faith element was when you start, I sound like an old man now, but so back when I started, they didn't give you clients. They didn't give you existing relationships with the firm. You had to go out and you had zero assets and zero clients. I was working out of the trunk of my car. When I go out door to door, literally through neighborhoods to introduce myself and let people know that I was going to be opening up an office in town. If I could ever be of service, please let me know. They thought I was a Jehovah's Witness. Some people thought I was a funeral home director. It was very cold when I was out walking and had this black coat on. It was a very trying time. And when you start out with zero assets and zero clients, you are literally, it's the definition of struggle. And you talk about the grind and what you have to do. It was very thankless back then. If you talk to 25 people, it was usually 23 no's, one heck no, a little stronger than that, and a maybe. And that was a successful day, just getting out and having those conversations with people. So that there was an absolute grind when things started. And my wife and young kids, young daughter at the time had one, and then added the second and third as we went. What made it work was that my wife had an awful lot of grace. She bought into. She knew she had confidence in me and faith in me that this was going to work, and there was an awful lot of grace for the grind, I guess you could say. And had she not been in my corner and encouraging, it wouldn't have worked. So as I look back on just starting then and then leaving a very successful practice after 10 years at the other firm to go hang my own shingle, and we're going to do it all over again. Again, it was being surrounded by people who could encourage you, and that thankfully there was a lot of grace for errors and for missteps and mistakes, and all of that was very critical. But yeah, it became something where my faith was set in such a way that if I'm supposed to succeed at this, there's nothing I can do to screw it up, and if I'm going to screw this thing up, there's nothing I can do to make it succeed. And so I just kind of rested in knowing that either way, it's all good. I don't define my success or my walk based on the financial outcome. It's more about the big picture.
So, John, you touched on this in one of our earlier episodes, but what would you go back and say to your wife and your family, for like being that rock of support? If you're talking directly to them, what's your message? I know that's powerful.
Well, yeah, I cannot thank them enough. There's no way I can thank them enough for, again, the grace, for that matter, the grace my family continues to show me. This is a work in progress and will be until I'm gone. But that grace that they had for me, for the late nights and for the early mornings and the Saturdays and everything it took early on to to get things moving the right direction. I am so appreciative of my girls and of Karen.
So the other message I'd love for you to send really quickly before we move on, which is just, what would you tell that person who's sitting in their car today, who's not happy with their direction in life, who's wondering if they should take the leap? What would you tell them?
Oh man. I think the first thing would be, you got to be authentic. The sooner you can realize that your joy is going to come from your tribe, and your tribe is going to be drawn to something. And if you're drawing them to an inauthentic you, that's a tough one to negotiate and reconcile. So the sooner you can figure out, okay, what does the authentic me look like as I pursue this? And don't be afraid if it's a little bit different than what the boilerplate, industry game plan is. It's completely fine. In fact, it's almost a relief when you can find a way to do it that's not cookie cutter.
Yeah. So you have said before that balance isn't about perfection. Like, balance isn't about perfection. Mm-hmm. Will you kind of talk to me just a little bit about like this idea of this like work-life balance and like what actually matters?
Yeah. And I know lots of advisors that have had very successful practices that are, on marriage 2 or 3 or 4. That's not how I'm going to measure success. And to sacrifice everything for the pursuit of the professional success is just an accident waiting to happen. So what I would encourage people to build and plan around and be intentional about is, to the best of your ability, surround yourself with people who can catch a vision and know what the end goal is. And you have to have that support network. It could be a spouse, it could be parents, it could be kids. I don't know who it could be different for everybody. But when you get buy-in from your team, it makes all the difference. Without that, it's literally uphill 24/7, and it's not worth that grind.
Were there seasons in your life where you feel like you got it wrong, and what did you learn from those seasons?
There are hours in my life where I get it wrong. I wish there was a season of perfection, but it's not there. There's a lot of people have kind of a win or lose mindset, and the sooner you can adapt, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I thought it was fantastic. It's not win or lose; it's win or learn and adapt. And there's no loss if failure isn't failure. A misstep is a learning opportunity, and if you can learn and adapt, and polish and sometimes hack and carve your approach, that you're one step closer to having it right. So you have to, again, as we're redefining success, you also have to redefine what's a win and what's a loss. And the loss isn't a loss if you learn and adapt. You are somebody who, I think everybody who knows you knows that you care deeply about your family. How did you protect family time while you were growing the business? I mean, did you have any tips or tricks, any things that were like sacred time that you blocked off and really, really fought to protect and insulate from? We did, but and to keep in mind, and I can't say, and I sound like such an old man when I say this, but we were broke when we started out. We poured everything into this to get it started. So and fortunately the kids were very, very young, so they didn't really know. We have a joke to this day. One of my longtime team members remembered how excited my kids got when we were going to get Pizza Hut pizza, because that was fancy. That was when we were having a fancy night. So Yeah, when you focus on family time, it's just trying like crazy to be present when you're there. When you have this entrepreneurial kind of mindset and you're trying to grow something, it's even to this day is very easy to get sucked into thinking about that 24/7. And the sooner you can find your happy place and it's not work related. I know for me, my favorite moment of the day is at the end of the day when I come home and Karen and I can put on some music, and if the weather's right, we can go sit on the deck, have a glass of wine, we'll throw something on the grill, and just kind of spend 2 hours out there just unwinding. And that is my happy place right there. And it could be, it can be hot dogs on the grill with the kids. It can be anything, but having that time and that being present during that time is so incredibly important.
Yeah, and I think that you and I have worked together on the CEO program through the Midland Institute of Entrepreneurship, and talk to these kids. And Craig Linvall in his book has this line where he talks about life isn't a laser beam. And so like I want to just tell you personally, like thank you as an entrepreneur, because it's so easy to look at John Forbes today and to look backwards linearly at everything that happened in your life and go like, oh, this all makes perfect sense. It all looks great. It all went perfectly according to plan. He's so lucky. He had it all figured out. And to have entrepreneurs be willing to just say, like, I was broke. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I made mistakes. I struggled. I was trying to be present with my kids and I wasn't. Like, that is such a, like, so powerful to hear from somebody in your position now who's made it, who's doing really cool things, and who's got this kind of figured out. And I know that you would say, you don't have it all figured out just yet, but you've got a lot of really good things going. And for you to be able to just tell that generation of entrepreneurs that's up and coming, like, hey, it's not always perfect. It's not all going to go according to plan. And if it's not going according to plan right now, that's completely normal. And so I just thank you for doing that.
No, the learn and adapt. I still have opportunities. Now, the good news is, for the longest time, I would say it was juggling chainsaws. And it still is. It's just, maybe you go from juggling 5 chainsaws to juggling 2 or 3. It gets a little bit more manageable over time. But I think if you have that kind of desire to serve others well and to redefine what that even means to serve others well, that's going to be an itch you're always going to try to scratch, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just understand, especially in the early years, it takes time. I had a guy, and I'll never. Kevin was his name. He was a trainer of mine back when I was new to the industry, and he had a saying: "You don't get paid for the work you do today." And my wife and I can't tell you how many times over the last nearly 3 decades we've reminded ourselves of that, and it happened frequently early on. It's not as often today, but there's still days where something will happen. You don't get paid for the work you do today. It's still, some of this is still planting seeds.
Yeah. John, how did you sort of, set your team culture and build a team that reflects the priorities that you have outside of work? Because I think like one of the coolest things you do is you are the same person to your clients, that you are with your friends and your family. Like there's a very thin layer of shift between like business John and regular John. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really powerful thing that's really shaped your business. How'd you do that?
Oh, geez. Well, it's with, as I kind of reflect on that, I know, Nancy, my VP of operations, she's been with me for well over 20 years, probably close to 22, 23 years now. And I think with any, working relationship, grace seems to be the theme today. And I think you don't get through that long a period working with somebody without having grace both ways. And when I would start to kind of explain the vision of what I was thinking we could do, she embraced it well. And as we, have added on people now, with most recently we've got Miranda. She comes from a background of owning a small business and a grind and dealing with
And hospitality.
the hospitality end of everything, and she has been a fantastic addition for us. So when you surround yourself with people who catch that vision, and I think the way I've kind of, as I look back with Nancy, she embraces an ownership mentality. She's not renting a chair. She has that ownership mindset. So when you can surround yourself with people that think like owners and take that fierce pride in what they do, that makes it so much easier to share ideas and get team buy-in. And it's never, well, I don't say never, most of the time it's not yeah but, it's yeah and we could do this, and you create these fantastic experiences, and then it gets, when they have that input and that ownership of the idea, it makes it a lot easier to encourage them to pursue it.
So the main question I have here is, as we kind of move, is like, if you could go back and do it all over again, would you grind harder or would you slow down?
That is a good question, and I think any time you're starting something, you're building something from scratch, you've got to grind, and I think what I did okay and could have done better, even to this day could still do it better, is making sure that the people you care about the most can catch a vision for why we're going through the grind, why this is happening, and then they get to celebrate along with you as you go from, back when we started out, I was in Carbondale, and there were months where we'd have to put groceries on a credit card, and Karen shopped out of town for groceries because we didn't want anybody to see, us, how to use credit cards to buy, because this is back before debit cards. Again, I sound like such an old man, but there was definitely, at least internally, I had a stigma of not wanting people to see that, and so this was, back in the mid '90s, but it was necessary to keep grinding to get out of that and to get it to the next level. And then you get to where you're treading water, and then the next season is just digging or digging back out from the first 2 years of where you had to really go crazy. And so in most instances, I think it's not uncommon, if you're pursuing something like this, that it could take 5, 6, 7 years before you even get to the point where, oh, this is why I wanted to do this. This is why, this is what I was, hoping could happen. And today we're at a point where I couldn't have dreamed it. I couldn't have dreamed that we would have this kind of success and this much fun working with our favorite people.
That's amazing. So one of the things that kind of we've identified as we've kind of gone through these steps is that you've really kind of built fun into the foundation of everything you do. You've built joy into business and in life. Mm-hmm. And my question to you is, at what point did you realize that you had to sort of make the business fun in order for it to sustain, in order for it to continue, in order for it to thrive, as opposed to like the bonus because you were doing well?
Yeah, now that goes back to the parking lot moment, where okay, this is, I'm not thriving. This is not thriving. There's no way I can encourage my team. There's no way I can encourage my wife, my kids. We've really got to turn this around. And I thought, okay, well, what are the things that I enjoy? What do I love? And that's when I love to meet, have fun with friends, get together with friends, and have good food, have a glass of wine, laugh and talk, and catch up with good friends. So that became the theme. Then was, okay, as I look at my clients, yeah, there's a lot of people I would love to have a cup of coffee with. I would love to, had to spend the evening chatting with. And so we kind of put together that list of who do we think we would have a lot of good times with, and then started trying things. And we've done, several years ago, we actually did a Forbes financial cruise where we coordinated a cruise, and we had, I think there were 25 or 30 clients that went on a cruise with us. And it doesn't have to be that grand, but it can be when you step back and think. Now, that didn't happen overnight. We had to build up that authentic relationship, a little bit at a time. And it as far as the culture and how we got there, I've always wanted us to have a practice where we're working at about 70 to 75% capacity. We're not grinding by any stretch, and I don't want to, because one of the things early on we encouraged our clients to do was, hey, if you're out and about, stop by for a cup of coffee. Just come on. And clients would start doing that. They would come in, and I gave myself time, and my team knew they had time. If one of our favorite people comes in and they want to have a cup of coffee, we're going to take 15 minutes and visit. And you just, that didn't cost me any. It cost me a couple cups of coffee from a Mr. Coffee. It wasn't even great coffee, to be honest with you, but we've upped our coffee game since. But it cost very little to show unreasonable hospitality. I'll go back to that book. We'll get Era's book again. It doesn't cost money necessarily at all to be kind, to be inviting, to be available for people to come in, and it's, it starts out kind of surfacey, and then after a few weeks, months, years of doing this, we had a client just recently. His wife passed away rather suddenly, and she became very ill very quickly, and just in a matter of days passed away. It blew my mind. He came to our office straight from the hospital. He said, I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know who to go. I wanted to come in and see you guys and tell you what's going on. And to have that kind of depth of relationship with your people, with your favorite people, is so humbling, and it's so incredible that it doesn't happen overnight. But as you take those steps, for us to just try to be available and let people know, hey, come by, come see us. Starbucks, I think they said they always want to be that third place between work and home, and I've not put a good word, a good thought to it, but we kind of wanted to be that for our favorite people. And there isn't a week that goes by that we don't have somebody come in, or a few people come in, just to stop in and say hi. They're out and about, and they just want to come in and give us a little life update.
Well, and you don't get that by being anything less than authentic. The idea that, there are people who are, connected to you that one of the highlights of their week or even their month sometimes is an event that you're putting together. And one of the coolest stories I think you've ever sort of told me, or that I've learned, in working with you over the years, is that, like, there are people who are best friends. Like, they hang out, they spend time together, and I can't imagine how ludicrous it sounds in any other context to go like, oh, how'd you two meet? It's like, oh, we met at a potluck that my financial advisor did. Like, that sentence would be crazy in any other context, and yet it is exactly what happened. It is exactly the connection and the relationship that makes this incredible difference, because it's real. Then let me just kind of lead into, like, why do you think the potlucks and the wine nights and the client events have been so successful? Why do you think that has made such a difference?
I think on just at the human level, a lot of people just crave. We are relational people. We're relational beings, and sharing time and spending time with friends is it gives there's some people that maybe don't respond to that, but spending time with friends is an integral part of your emotional and mental health and well-being. And we found, a lot of our clients, not all of them, but a lot of them are over the age of 60 for sure. And when you're no longer in the workforce, it's really hard to meet people. It's hard, I guess, at any age really to meet people. But when you get out of that routine and life life routines change, it's really hard to meet people. And yeah, we've had several clients tell us that we're their social directors, and it's kind of funny. We take a lot of pride in that, but yeah, introducing folks to other people and seeing friendships develop, and having them snap a picture that these two couples they're out to dinner together and they met through us. I didn't realize how odd that sounds until you just said that, and it's like how many people say I met some of our best friends at the dentist's office, or when I was dropping off my taxes with the accountant or whatever. It just doesn't happen, and that's where so many financial advisors, their practices feel more like dental practices than anything else, and it's two awkward conversations a year, and the person walks out with their 6-month checkup date on the calendar. That is so far from what we do, and I don't know anybody that craves that, and I think there's a real opportunity in any industry, if you can find ways to make hospitality a focal point of what you do. It will absolutely set you apart. The world is desperately seeking those relational opportunities.
Well, and John, I think my outside perspective is it's the difference between transactional and relational, and I think that that there are so many, books and podcasts and things that exist out there that tell financial advisors that like creating this relationship with their clients is really important, but it's like creating this surface level thing that looks and feels sort of kind of like a relationship, that sort of kind of feels like friendship. It's putting on that big fake smile for those 2 meetings a month, and it's the difference between what they're doing and what they're trying to like fake and what you've actually built, which is this deep connection where people, they look at you as a trusted advisor and a friend and a connection, and people who know their lives and know their grandchildren and know what's going on. And it makes all the difference in the world, because as people, we're smart enough to know when things aren't real. We're smart enough to know when it's like, oh yeah, that person was nice to me, but that wasn't real nice to me. Like that was awkward. Mm-hmm. So, how do you think that like building that sense of community has changed the way you kind of think about like wealth and success and like what's important inside the business and inside the relationships you're building?
I think it makes all the difference in the world, and to take, and this might be getting too big and too grand, I don't know, but you mentioned transactional, and then you go from that to the client experience, and for years that's kind of what we focused on. There's a fantastic coach out there, Dennis Mosley Williams is his name, and he said no matter what your business is, you want to get past a great client experience. You want to become transformational. You want to become irreplaceable to whoever you're serving. And that's in any industry. And I think the more that we adopt that mindset of not only are we trying to create wow moments for our clients, now how do we take that and help them with, we have this relationship, how do we take that and help them just become transformational in their lives? And you think that might be a large task, and it probably is for somebody in their 60s or 70s, to become a transformational part in their life. But that's what we want to do. We want to help them. We've got the money stuff under control. We have under control what we can control, and we know there's stuff that we can't, and that's fine. But now we've got this figured, let's focus on the really important stuff, and how can we foster and encourage those next steps. And honestly, sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down. I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago with a couple, and trying to change that mindset of, we've got to save, to no, look, you're okay. If you didn't save another dollar, you're fine. Now, what can we do that would literally bring you joy? And he didn't say much, but his wife blurted out a couple things that she knew would bring him joy. And to have that conversation with him, we spent about half an hour just talking about these two things, and what would that look like, and you've got the ability, but do you have the ability to enjoy it if you do spend this money and do this? You can absolutely do this financially, but I don't want you to do it financially and not be able to fully appreciate and soak up everything that this is going to allow you to do. So getting into those kinds of conversations is transformational, because when people act on that and they look back 5 years from now, they'll be like, oh wow, yeah, that was the thing to do. I'm glad I did that. And that's the conversations that we're wanting to get into with our people now.
John, I think that like this has been such a fun episode as we've talked through this, and there's so much to unpack from it, and there's so many different directions that I think we're going to go in future episodes. But like, I want to just kind of tie this up with two different thoughts today, which is number one, what advice would you give to someone who feels like their work is kind of like stealing their joy, that's holding them back? What advice would you give to them?
It's probably pretty simple, but I think the first thing you got to figure out is, to what we just talked about, 5 years from now, in a perfect world, 5 years from now, what does the world around me look like? What would be something that I wouldn't believe it if you told me it was going to happen. And work backwards from there and figure out, because if work is stealing your joy, one thing I do know is you can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different outcome. You have to either understand, if you're in that grind season, what am I grinding for? Have I lost vision? Have I lost the idea of why I'm doing this? It could also bring you to the decision of what's really frustrating you is what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing it. That this career track you're on isn't the one you really want, or the one you were aiming for, but you're scared to take that next step. You really need to figure out where it is you want to go. It gets back to that whole intentionality thing. You got to know where, if we keep doing the same thing over and over and we're frustrated, it's probably because we haven't defined what's the goal. What am I trying to do? And not the 20 or 30 year goal. What's the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal? What do I want to look like 5 years from now? And then we dial back in to see how we get there. Because it could very well be that you're in this season of grind, and you've got to remind yourself and remind your support team, hey, this is hard. This is tough, and I am so appreciative that you're in this with me, and get everybody on that page. And again, it may be something where you're a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and maybe it's time we carve off some edges and jump into that round hole.
So just to kind of tie all this together, how are you keeping fun a priority today, this week? What are some of the things that you have, with all of the serious sides of, financial planning and everything that's going on in the world? How do you keep fun in your day, in your week, in your month? What are things you're looking forward to?
Anything with the grandkids. That's the FaceTime with the grandkids, them coming to see us going to see them. That's the overriding that takes new precedence on the calendar completely, with everything, and of course the kids too. We don't want to skip past them, but yeah, family time, spending time. Just Karen and I can get out and get away and do something. That's fun. I think I just got back from this conference, and we had a reception the final night. And they had this absolutely fantastic band that was playing, and there was this older couple, had to be in their 70s. Both of them had to be in their 70s, and they were dancing like there was no tomorrow. It was absolutely a riot, and it was Maroon 5 songs, and it was it wasn't like his old 50s, 60s stuff that they were absolutely owning the floor out there dancing. And I went up to the guy and I shook his hand. I said, dude, you're my hero. This is who I want to be. And his response was, you get old enough, you don't care anymore. You don't care. And I went over and hugged his wife and I said, you guys brought so much joy tonight. I don't think you'll ever know how much joy you brought. And she kind of alluded to the same thing. It's just like, they're fun-loving, carefree. And it was funny because they happened to have their son and their grandkid, and the grandkid, 5, 6 years old. At first I thought he was actually embarrassed. It's like he's acting like a teenager. Grandma and grandpa are out there owning the dance floor. And he was so it was cute. It was sweet to see all of that. And just that reminder that you probably care a whole lot more about things than anybody around you cares or thinks about you. So just be authentic and go dance.
Aha, I love it. So I always like to end these with sort of a call to action, a challenge for the audience. If you could give someone advice based on the journey that you've had, somebody who is the wild-eyed dreamer who's trying to balance work and life, what's one thing that you would tell them to do this week to improve things?
Find your foundation, and by that I mean who are you can't do it on your own. Who are the people that are going to be critical in supporting this journey? It could be a spouse, it could be kids, it could be friends, whoever it is. Get that foundation firm and make sure you've got somebody else that you can turn to when the grind is hard, that can remind you don't get paid for the work you do today. This isn't what it's going to end like. This is what it starts like, but this isn't what it ends like. And having that support system around you is, I would say, it's absolutely critical. If your support team isn't behind it, it's either not a good idea, or maybe you need to find a different support team. Those would be two things you have to address. If you're married, I hope it's a bad idea. So they might be able to help you refine that idea a little bit. But you've got to have that foundation in place of who's going to be in the ditches, in the trenches with me as I go through this.
John, thank you so much for your time today. That was fantastic. That was so much fun. I cannot wait to dig into a couple of these stories deeper in the next couple episodes.
Sounds great, Nick. Thanks.
Security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal.